I met Tracy at George S. Henry Secondary School. She had the locker next to mine. She and I shared 2 classes together, and we both lifeguarded for the same company. We became friends, mainly school friends, because we didn't live close to each other. She had this boyfriend that used to lurk around all the time, that never came over, never smiled, was never very friendly, so I didn't really care for him either. It was very much an on-again, off-again relationship. One week she'd be dating him, then she'd say she'd split up. One day I was on my way home, and I had been at an after-school activity, and I had to get the things out of my locker really quickly before the school shut down. And I looked over at Tracy's locker because, well, as I was coming down the hall, I noticed it. It had been graffitied, and it had been covered in really horrible words and phrases. The one that stood up to me was "kill bitch" or "die bitch," something along those lines. And I was, of course, very freaked out by this. I ran upstairs to the office. I told them what happened. I was completely mortified. It was scary. It was not your normal type of graffiti. So I got my stuff. I went home. The next day I noticed that the locker door had been replaced. Tracy's locker had been moved. I asked her later on what had happened. I had a sneaking suspicion it was the boyfriend. Who else could possibly write such horrible things about such a lovely, wonderful girl? And she said it was him, but she didn't really elaborate much more other than to say that the school had punished him. Later on, I found out she had broken up with him, but then she got back together again for a little while, and she would just sort of fluff it all off with, "Oh, Stephanie," and a smile. So they were very much opposites, but for some reason she stuck with him. For a while anyway. I believe she broke up with him again. The last time I saw Tracy was on the Don Mills bus. We were headed southbound. I got on and she was there, and I was surprised because it was the summertime and she was lifeguarding, and I didn't know where her moped was, which her parents had bought for her. And so I asked her, and she said that it had been in the shop, and she was going to pick it up in a couple of days. And she never mentioned that it had been stolen, which is what I found out later. But it was in the shop. And the pool that she used to lifeguard at was a long way away. It was downtown. It was not in the best neighborhood. And she could have worked anywhere, but she chose to work there. And I asked her again, "Why are you working all the way down there? It's such a long drive and everything else." And she said she really liked it. She didn't have to work there. There weren't that many lifeguards, and there were a lot of pools in those days. It was a long, long time ago. Anyway, we had a nice chat. I found out that Tracy had passed away when a girlfriend of mine called me. I had heard the beginnings of the radio report that a girl had been found murdered, and I turned it off right before the name came up because I just found it depressing and I didn't want to hear about it. So when the phone rang and I found out it was Tracy, I was quite devastated. I did not go to the funeral. I couldn't face it. I always thought that the police would call me or something about the locker incident, but they never did. And I was just a kid. I went on with my life, but it did bother me, and I have thought about it often. I hadn't really realized until recently just how much of my thoughts it took up. Anyway, that's it. Tracy was a lovely, wonderful girl, and I hope that one day we can put an end to who did this to her.